At my son's graduation, my parents handed me a note that read, "Congrats, you're the mother of someone worth celebrating unlike you." My sister laughed and whispered, "Maybe he'll break the curse of useless women." I clapped for my son while they mocked me in the stands. But I'd already sent a letter to the dean, and what I found about my sister's fake degree changed everything. When they begged me not to go out in public, I just smiled. "Maybe now you'll finally change." I'm Ramona, 47, from Tacoma, Washington. I've always been disappointed. That's not self-pity, it's just how my family framed me from the start. While my sister Sheridan was winning science fairs, getting praised for her natural charisma, and getting into an Ivy League school, allegedly, I was the quiet one who read too much and smiled too little. My parents, Hugh and Nadine, never directly told me I was a failure, they just made sure I always felt like one. I got pregnant young, married even younger, and divorced when my son, Jackson, was 7. My ex, Saul, left us to start over in Santa Barbara with a yoga instructor who taught him how to breathe through chaos. Good for him. That left me with bills, a kid, and barely enough in savings to keep the power on through winter. We lived in a rental on South M Street. Mold in the corners, faucets that squealed, but it was ours. I worked at the Tacoma Public Library and picked up diner shifts on weekends. Jackson never once heard me complain. I didn't have the luxury. Meanwhile, Sheridan was being flown to Singapore for client summits, posing on Instagram with captions like #BossBabe, and lecturing anyone who'd listen about personal branding and financial independence. Her firm was called Elysian Capital. I once asked what she did exactly, and she replied, "I optimize asset ecosystems for green alignment." I still don't know what that means. Whenever family gathered, usually holidays hosted at my parents' painfully overdecorated McMansion, Sheridan would bring some pompous boyfriend and regale everyone with stories about the startup world. And my parents? They just ate it up. Meanwhile, I'd get comments like, "Still at the library, huh," and "Jackson must really take after his father." I swallowed it for years. Because I had bigger priorities. Raising a son with decency, work ethic, and a sense of kindness. Jackson never asked for anything. I scraped every penny I could to get him decent clothes, keep him in extracurriculars, and take him to the local YMCA for basketball. The first big shift came when he got a full ride to the University of Washington. Pre-med, top 2% of his class. It was a moment so pure I almost didn't know how to feel it. I cried in the parking lot of the Safeway when the letter came in. He was graduating this year, and I couldn't have been prouder. I never asked for credit. I didn't care if my name was mentioned. I just wanted to see my son walk that stage and know that I had done something right. But my family couldn't let me have even that. Graduation was held at the Alaska Airlines Arena. My parents insisted on organizing tickets. That should have been my first red flag. They'd gotten reserved seating, 2 rows up front for immediate family, as they put it. I was in the 3rd row, alone. Sheridan arrived wearing a white linen jumpsuit that looked like it cost more than my rent. She brought her husband, Bryce, who always smelled like pine and passive aggression. He kissed my cheek like I was something unpleasant but necessary. No one asked to sit with me. No one even looked my way. I sat quietly, holding my purse in my lap, smiling at the stage. Then came the moment. The name. Jackson Roansutter. My boy. My whole world. I clapped, proud tears in my eyes. That's when a folded note passed down the row. My mother handed it off to Bryce, who handed it to me like he was delivering a summons. I opened it. "Congrats, you're the mother of someone worth celebrating, unlike you." My breath caught. It was my mother's handwriting. I looked up. My sister turned in her seat, leaned toward me, and whispered, "Maybe he'll break the curse of useless women." She laughed. My hand shook, but not from sadness. It was something else. A tremble of anticipation. Because they didn't know what I had already done. It had started months earlier. Jackson casually mentioned that Sheridan was going to be a guest speaker at one of his business electives. She was part of a guest panel on ethical investing. Ethical. I laughed until I coughed. Because Sheridan has never been ethical. Or honest. She lies like she breathes. I remember her forging a report card in high school. Later, I caught her taking credit for a group project she didn't contribute to in college. Then came the inheritance money. Our cousin Jasper was promised a chunk of grandma's estate, but Sheridan advised him to invest in a real estate deal that mysteriously failed. No one saw the money again. I never said anything. Not once. I was always the bitter one, the jealous older sister. But this time I couldn't let it go. I started researching. I searched Brown University's alumni registry. Her name didn't come up. I tried different spellings. Maiden name. Nothing. Then I contacted Brown's registrar office directly. I posed as a potential employer doing degree verification. They replied within 3 days. No record of a degree. She had dropped out after her second year. Never went back. Never even declared a major. The rest of it, the transcripts, the certificates, the glowing resume, was all fabricated. I spent 2 months compiling everything. Emails. Archived pages. Fake LinkedIn connections. Even screenshots of her listed as class of 2001 in BIOS, when Brown confirmed that class didn't include her. I wrote a report. Neatly formatted. With citations. I sent it to the University of Washington's Ethics Committee and the Dean of Students. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. A month before graduation, I found out that Sheridan had been quietly removed from the speaker panel. No public announcement. Just a shift in schedule. A week before graduation, she started calling me. The first call came from a number I didn't recognize. It rang twice and stopped. Then again. When I picked up, the voice on the other end was clipped and cold. Ramona? I hadn't heard Sheridan say my name like that in years, like it was something sour in her mouth. You don't know what you've done. I stayed quiet. The thing about Sheridan is, she talks because silence terrifies her. And I'd learned, over time, that nothing rattles her more than stillness. Did you think this would make you look good? You've embarrassed Mom and Dad. You've humiliated the family. They're already calling me from UW. I didn't put you on that panel, I finally said. You did that yourself. The line went dead. Then the text started, from my mother. You don't know what she's going through right now. This is petty, Ramona. Even for you. Your sister built something. Can't you just be happy for her? Don't ruin this family any more than you already have. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I didn't need to say them anymore. When you grow up being treated like you're invisible, there's a strange freedom that comes when you stop needing validation. I had finally reached the place where I didn't care if they understood. I didn't care if they forgave me. Because I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. For every awkward dinner. For every sideways comment about being just a librarian. For every time my son was told he was miraculously bright as if he couldn't possibly have come from me. A week passed after graduation. Then too. I kept busy. Back to shelving books, wiping down the tables in the children's section after story hour. Mrs. Timmons, the elderly regular who came in for her daily crossword books, noticed the bounce in my step. You look taller lately, she said. I guess I stopped ducking. 3 weeks in, the blog posts started surfacing. The first was small, local. A student-run finance blog out of UW that noticed inconsistencies in Sheridan's panel bio. Someone had picked up the thread, posted their own findings. That led to a post on Medium by a former client who had invested in a green startup through Elysian Capital and never saw a dime back. Then it snowballed. A Seattle-based watchdog site that tracked shady investment firms picked it up. They ran a full expose. They referenced Brown University's response, embedded screenshots of old bios, showed inconsistencies in timelines. One post titled, "The Face of Fake, How Sheridan Mays Fooled the Pacific Northwest Startup Scene," circulated like wildfire. Then someone on LinkedIn began commenting on her posts, demanding degree verification. Her profile went private a day later. And that's when the calls from my parents stopped. Complete radio silence. Jackson called the night the LinkedIn thread went viral. He didn't say he knew. But he's smart. Smarter than me in some ways. He started hesitantly. Hey, Mom, yeah? Did you and Aunt Sheridan get into something? I mean, I just noticed a few things going around online. I paused. Then asked, do you think she's always told the truth? He laughed, short, tired. I think I learned how to be honest from you. That was all we said on the subject. But I think that was all that needed to be said. About 2 months after graduation, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door to find my father standing stiffly on the porch. He was holding his hat in both hands like it was some kind of peace offering. "We need to talk." I almost laughed. Because for years, I was the one begging for that conversation. I didn't invite him in. We stood outside, next to my sagging hydrangea bush and the broken wind chime Jackson made in second grade. He looked older than I remembered. As if the lie had aged him more than time. "Your mother is upset." "I imagine she is. She says you've humiliated Sheridan." "I didn't make her lie, Dad." He stared at me then, really looked like he was seeing someone for the first time in decades. "Maybe I didn't give you enough credit. It should have meant more. Maybe 10 years ago it would have. But now it just felt like a raindrop falling after the storm had already passed." A few days later, Sheridan showed up. No warning. Just a sleek black Tesla pulling up to the curb like it was trying not to be noticed, even though it hummed like a spaceship. She knocked like she owned the place. I opened the door slowly. She looked thinner. Hollow, even. Not just physically, but like something in her hand shriveled. "I need to talk," she said. "Privately." I stepped aside, and she walked in like she'd never left. That was the thing about Sheridan, she never asked permission. Just assumed space belonged to her. She didn't sit. Just stood in my living room, arms crossed, eyes darting. "Do you feel better? Do you feel sorry?" I asked. She scoffed. "I built a business from nothing. I got a job. I created things. You created a lie. You built a house on sand." Her voice broke then. Just a little. "I was supposed to be the one who got out. I was supposed to matter." "You always mattered to them," I said. "I just stopped needing to." She looked at me, truly looked. And for the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in her expression. Fear. Not me. But of the truth. She tried one last thing. "If you go public, really public, it'll destroy me." "I'm not the one doing the destroying," I said. Then I opened the door. She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. The house was quiet, but not the uneasy kind of quiet it had been for years. This silence had weight. Substance. It was the quiet of someone reclaiming space that had never truly been hers but had always felt like it should have been. I walked into the kitchen and put on a pot of coffee like I hadn't just watched my sister crumble under the weight of her own lies. I didn't feel triumphant. This wasn't some cinematic climax where I pumped my fist and declared victory. If anything, I felt steady. I hadn't exposed Sheridan because I wanted her to suffer. I did it because for the first time in my life, I wanted the truth to breathe. I wanted to stop being the only one suffocating in silence. A week passed. Then another. People in town began murmuring. Tacoma small, and news circulates, even the kind that doesn't make the front page. At the library, a woman I barely knew from the school board came in and whispered to me while checking out her books. "I heard about your sister. You did the right thing." I didn't ask how she knew. That's the thing about secrets, they have a half-life. Sheridan's had just expired. Another woman, one I used to work with at the diner, caught me by the coffee counter at the Safeway. "You always were the quiet one," she said, "but quiet doesn't mean weak." And that sat with me. Because for years, I let people confuse meekness for failure. I wasn't meek. I was waiting. Watching. I was surviving. Sheridan tried to salvage things. I saw it online. Her company website went offline for a while, then came back up under a different name. A fresh coat of paint. Rebranding, like people do when they're trying to outpace the past. But this time, the past was faster. A former intern posted a thread on Twitter, well-sourced, polite, even deferential, that outlined how Sheridan had used forged credentials to close client deals. How she had presented them with false projections, then blamed external shifts when the returns didn't materialize. Another investor chimed in. Then another. It didn't go viral, exactly. Sheridan wasn't famous enough for that. But it spread just far enough, through Pacific Northwest finance circles, startup forums, women in business LinkedIn groups. Her credibility didn't explode, it eroded. Bit by bit. Like sandstone under wind. Then Jackson came home. Just for the weekend. He'd been offered a summer fellowship at Columbia and was going to visit the campus before making a decision. He looked tired but excited. Sharper. He was becoming his own man, and I could already tell, he was going to be the kind of man people trusted. We had dinner, roast chicken and asparagus, and talked about his trip. Then, somewhere between clearing plates and sharing ice cream, he asked. So, Aunt Sheridan? I took a breath. What do you want to know? He shrugged, then looked at me. I think I already know. But I want to hear your version. So I told him. Not all the gory details. Not the decades of resentment, the note at graduation, the whispers behind my back, or the sound of Sheridan's voice cracking when she realized the jig was up. I just told him the truth. That she lied. That she built an empire on paper, and I exposed her because no one else would. He sat with that for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. You know, I used to wonder why you didn't try harder to prove yourself to them. But now I get it. I raised an eyebrow. And what's that? You were never playing their game. A few nights later, Bryce showed up. I hadn't seen him since graduation. Not that I missed him. He parked that ridiculous matte black Audi on the street like some tech bro courier and walked up with the smugness of a man who still believed he could negotiate his way through anything. I just want to talk, he said. You're 2 months late, I replied, leaning on the doorframe. He looked uncomfortable. The tan was gone. His hair looked thinner. His voice wasn't quite as polished. She's spiraling, he said finally. You've made your point. Okay? You've taken everything from her. I didn't take anything, I said calmly. She gambled with lies. I just called the bet. She's losing clients. Friends. Investors. Even her therapist dropped her. I couldn't help it, I actually raised my eyebrows. Her therapist? Conflict of interest, he muttered. Whatever. The point is, she's not okay. And you think I am? I asked. You think I've been okay all these years? He went quiet. That note she passed me, I continued. That whisper in the stands, when she laughed about my curse? That was the last straw. You want to talk about consequences? Maybe she should have thought about those before branding me as the family failure every holiday for 20 years. He shifted, rubbing the back of his neck. She said you wouldn't do anything. She said you didn't have it in you. I smiled. Not because it was funny. But because it was predictable. She never understood me, I said. She thought being quiet meant I was weak. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, softly, she's afraid you'll go public. Really public. That you'll make it official. I didn't answer. Not then. Because I hadn't decided. 3 days later, a letter came in the mail. Thick envelope. No return address. Inside, it was a handwritten apology from my mother. The first one I'd ever received. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't full of warmth or vulnerability. But it was sincere. She wrote, you were right to do what you did. We were wrong. About you. About her. I still don't know how to talk to you like a daughter. But I want to try. That line undid me more than anything. Because somewhere inside me, the child who used to sit in the corner of family gatherings, invisible, holding paper plates and biting her tongue, that child had longed to hear exactly that. I didn't cry. But I folded the letter carefully, placed it in the same drawer where I'd kept that note from graduation. The one that started it all. They could sit side by side now. The insult and the apology. The weapon and the offering. Proof of the journey. A few days after I received my mother's letter, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took the day off from work. Not because I was sick or Jackson needed something, or the plumbing burst, just because I wanted to. I walked down to Wright Park with a coffee in hand and sat by the pond, watching families and college kids drift past with that casual joy of people who haven't yet been bitten by life. I thought about silence. And what it cost me. I thought about the version of me that used to believe that dignity meant taking the high road, even when people spit on you as you climbed. But I wasn't that version anymore. The truth had been quietly settling into the world. But I hadn't truly spoken yet. Not in my own words. Not with my own name. And I realized Sheridan wasn't just afraid of consequences. She was afraid of my voice. So I gave it to her. It started small. A post. Just one. On a local Tacoma professional women's networking group. I'd never contributed before, though I'd lurked for years. I posted a short, clean write-up. No anger. No vengeance. Just the facts. My name is Ramona Sutter. I've worked in the Tacoma Public Library system for over 20 years. I'm also the mother of a recent UW graduate, and the older sister of a woman some of you may know through regional business circles, Sheridan Mays. Over the past year, I became aware that Sheridan had been presenting fraudulent credentials, including a fabricated degree from Brown University, in order to gain investor trust and institutional invitations. I compiled evidence and submitted a report to the University of Washington Ethics Committee prior to a panel event where she was scheduled to speak. She was removed quietly. But since then, several publications and individuals have continued to experience the fallout. I've remained silent publicly until now. But I want to say this: being quiet does not mean being weak. And being underestimated is not the same as being wrong. This isn't about revenge. This is about truth. And sometimes, the truth wears plain shoes, works 2 jobs, and gets told at every family dinner she's not enough. To every woman who's been told she's too ordinary to matter, I see you. And sometimes, ordinary saves the day. I didn't tag Sheridan. I didn't even mention the company name. But I didn't have to. Because when you finally name your story out loud, it echoes in places you don't expect. By the next week, the post had over 3,000 shares. Comments flooded in. Some were from women who'd been pushed out of family businesses by smoother-talking brothers. Others were from professionals who had met Sheridan and always suspected something was off but never felt certain enough to question her. Some were from people who had been quietly rooting for the quiet ones their whole lives. I received 3 speaking invitations from local women's groups. One even offered to pay me. I declined the money. But I said yes to the microphone. Sheridan's firm folded 2 months later. Not in a dramatic bankruptcy, but a slow, embarrassing leak of clients and reputation. Her name became uninsurable in the corporate consultancy world. Every major conference she once bluffed her way into suddenly had no comment on her availability. I heard she took a job as a project manager under a different name for a real estate development group out in Redmond. Someone told me she avoids in-person events now. No more panels. No more TEDx pitches. No more photo shoots with motivational quotes. And Bryce? He moved out. Or was asked to. No one really knows. But his LinkedIn now reads, open to work. My mother called again in September. She wanted to invite me to Thanksgiving. Said it wouldn't feel right without Jackson and me there. Sheridan won't be coming, she added, like that was a selling point. But I told her we already had plans. We didn't. Jackson and I spent that day making turkey sandwiches and watching classic movies in our pajamas. It was the best Thanksgiving I've had in years. No one criticizes my cooking. No one handed me passive-aggressive notes. No one whispered about curses or disappointment. Just peace. I still have the original note. Congrats, you're the mother of someone worth celebrating, unlike you. I keep it in the same drawer as my mother's apology letter and a printout of my viral post. Sometimes, I think about throwing it away. But not yet. Because now, that note isn't a wound. It's a trophy. A reminder of how far I came.